Hi, I'm Randy Myers. I'm the fungicide manager for Bayer CropScience, and I work with our portfolio of fungicides that we use on corn, soybeans, wheat, and other broadacre crops. I'm working today in cooperation with Sunrise Cooperative, answering some questions about fungicide use. And I want to talk about the Tassel application, the more traditional timing of application of a fungicide on corn. Now, the reason that is the timing to get the most benefit out of a fungicide is because the primary role of a fungicide is to control diseases. And when the tassel first emerges, VT is the timing, that's the last branch of the tassel emerge from the whorl. Now at that stage, all the leaf tissue the plant's going to have is fully expressed. So all the tissue that you want to protect is now, you can get an application to actually cover that tissue. That's why that application gives you the highest yield increase above any other timing, at VT to R2 timing. So we're going from tassel emergence to brown silk. That's the window we're looking at. Now what we're trying to do with the application is get that fungicide down through the upper parts of the tissue, past the tassel and those top leaves, down to the middle of the canopy. Those leaves in the middle of the canopy, ear leaf and in that vicinity, they're the ones that contribute the most carbohydrate to the grain. So that's the real target that we're after. Now we want to make sure that we have two things: timing, which I've already mentioned between VT and R2, and coverage. If you don't get the fungicide where it needs to be, then no matter how good the chemistry is, it really can't do a good job of controlling the disease. Now what we're trying to do is get good coverage of those leaves to protect the photosynthetic surface area. Now when you just look at those leaves and you're trying to say, do I have disease or do I need to worry about something? It's important to recognize that by the time you start seeing lesions, there's already been damage inside those leaves. In fact, the eye is not really a good way to measure the health of the leaf, because on a corn leaf, you can lose almost a third of the chlorophyll before it starts to look at all chlorotic, where you start seeing lessening of that green tissue. So much can happen before you start seeing those lesions. The lesions develop because the tissue is now so damaged it starts to die, become necrotic, or the fungus is going into its life cycle where it's going into reproduction. So that's when you start seeing some of these visual symptoms. But that doesn't mean that the plant is, all the tissue that's still green is fully healthy and fully photosynthesizing. So it may not be contributing as much as it could. So it's important to make the application to protect that leaf tissue and keep that photosynthetic surface healthy for as long as possible and taking it well into the season. What we're also trying to do is protect the stalk quality. Stalk quality is a really critical component for a couple of reasons, because we're trying to make sure that we have a plant that stands at the end of the season. When you're going out there in the fall and it's starting to lean or bending over and you have to slow down going through the fields, that loses harvest efficiency. And when you're running about $100 an hour running that combine, the number of acres you can push through in an hour, it does add to the bottom line. Not just the yield increases, but the decrease in the expenses that you're laying out during harvest, that's an important component in your return on investment. Those stronger stalks, when they have good health, we've got good vascular tissue, and that's helping keep that plant cleaner longer, surviving longer, and with that delay in senescence of those leaves, we have a longer grain fill period, putting more carbohydrate into those grains and allowing us to have higher yields. A little increase in every single ear across the acres translates into a significant yield increase. There are some differences among hybrids in the way they respond to fungicides. Now, some hybrids that are very susceptible to a lot of diseases, they'll respond with the greatest consistent yield increase because those diseases are almost always there. Other hybrids which have a little more resistance or tolerance to disease pressures, those may not see the same magnitude of yield increase, but they still see good benefits from the standability, increased photosynthetic surface area, the changes that are occurring in the plant physiologically that help it have higher photosynthetic rates and good efficiencies. Those things are still taking place. So fungicides can benefit virtually any hybrid. It's just there are some variations in the consistency of the magnitude of that yield increase as you go from hybrid to hybrid, depending on its susceptibility to diseases. When you're making these fungicide applications, you're really trying to do three things. You're trying to protect that photosynthetic surface area. So as a fungicide, control those diseases. We're also looking at harvestability, good stalk strength, good stalk quality. So we have that plant standing nice and straight even if there's wind or wet soil conditions, so you can get it out of the field. Doesn't do a lot of good to have high yields that you can't get out of the field. And the third thing is we're trying to get those highest yields, so we want to have a very long grain fill period. So by having a good healthy plant with good photosynthetic surfaces, that grain fill period becomes extended and the plant has the ability to put the most carbohydrate into each one of those kernels.